It's tough sometimes because some companies want you to be a little less empathetic and a little more robotic, and I refuse to do so. What I have to do is be really freaking good at my job so that I can be like, oh, well, that's just Winston. Oh, that's just the marketing team. And so I get away with it because I put points on the board. And when you put points on the board, it's hard to say, I need you to change because you're too empathetic. But aren't we supposed to be focused on people? Help me understand that.
In today's world, how does a brand break through the noise and become iconic? Join me, Jason Harris, as I speak with the world's leading marketing experts about how they use soul and science to build an iconic brand. Think of it as EQ meeting IQ. So let's lock in and together fast forward our marketing minds on the Soul and Science podcast. Today on Soul and Science, I'm joined by Winston Warrior, marketing leader at Amazon, a creative force, an R&B artist, and one of those rare people who's mastered authentic reinvention. We're going to dig in with Winston on what it really means to build influence in public, evolve across radically different worlds, lead with humanity. This will be a conversation about identity, creativity, and why the most powerful brands and careers are never finished. They're always a work in progress. Welcome to the podcast, Winston.
Well, thanks, Jason. I appreciate that. And yeah, what a nice intro.
Of course.
So thank you.
That's a hard intro to write because you're a very multifaceted person, leader. You've worked across a lot of different disciplines. Can you give me a little bit about maybe how you got started in marketing and, did the music come first? Did the marketing come first? Did the style fashion thing come first? Tell me the order of things and how your career unfolded.
So I was born in Atlanta. No, I'm just kidding.
Are you in Atlanta now?
I'm in Atlanta, which is where everything started. I don't know what came first. I think I've always been fashion forward and I've always been musically inclined. I was in the choirs and you hear the whole story about artists. I would start off in the gospel choir. I was in the choir. I was drum major in high school band. I've always been, like I said, involved with music. I was valedictorian as well at my high school. So I was always this brainiac, nerdy guy that had this other side. So I always had these kind of dual sides going on. I also would say that the marketing piece came while I was in school. In the University of Miami. Shout out to the U. We didn't make it as the national champs, but we are still winners. But anyway, I digress.
You were ranked 10. You got up to the finals. It's pretty good.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And if we did not have penalties in the whatever, we would have had a different outcome.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, it was a great game. Shout out to those Canes. But anyway, I wanted to be pre-med, and I started that way. And then after my first lab, where I was sitting in front of the class and did not understand anything that the professor was saying, not because he wasn't speaking English, but being a Southern boy from Atlanta, I didn't understand his accent. And I was like, maybe medicine isn't for me. And so I changed my major to international finance and marketing. And that's when the marketing, it started to happen. So I've always had these different pieces of myself living at the same time. And I think that if you look at, and as we talk about how the career started and how my journey has been, I've kind of tuned up and tuned down different pieces of that. And I feel like at this point in my life, all of them are kind of working at the same time versus having to sacrifice one or the other. And I guess that wisdom comes with age. So
obviously you have a lot, you're multifaceted. What do you think you're really, really good at?
If I'm being fully transparent, I think it's what we're doing now. And it's the connection I made with your team. It's my humanity. I click with people. People interact with me and say, it's somebody I feel like I've known for a long time, or I get along with him, or whatever that word is and phrase that people use. And that has been my superpower. That is the essence of who I am. So when people meet me, they go, wow, there's something different about you. Whether that's the janitor, whether that's, the CEO, whether that's whoever it is, in all of my walks. And that has been the key to my success. And it's not, Jason, like I'm trying to use that key. I don't deliberately take the key and say, let me put this key in this hole and unlock this person's whatever. It's just who I am. I don't even know it's happening. And then all of a sudden, someone will come to me and say, you are so different because of how you treat me or how you treat others. Or I've been watching you and I see how you move and you're a different leader. You're different than other people. And that's been the key.
So you've reinvented yourself multiple times. Artist. You were a professor at the University of Miami,
Yep.
your alma mater. You were a consultant, influencer, leader now for years at Amazon. When did you realize that reinvention is essential to who you are, and that you have that itch to do multiple things versus you could just be like, hey, I'm going to be on social media and work at Amazon and that's it. That's going to take enough of my time.
It's an interesting question because I didn't realize that being flexible and being adaptable was important and just something I always did. And again, high school, valedictorian, drum major. Who does that? But I did. you know, and so when I went to the University of Miami, I was a student leader. I excelled in my academics because I was on an academic scholarship. In the choir, again, it's something that I've always done. And what's interesting is that when I was younger, I struggled with, especially when I went into corporate America, I struggled with trying to be the corporate guy and also trying to be the R&B singer in my R&B group. Like, it was frowned upon for somebody who was younger coming into a organization, say for instance, Motorola, to come in the marketing organization at a certain level and then also have these pursuits outside of corporate. That's just not how things were done back in the 90s, and not trying to date myself, but the beard does it as well. But that's not, that's how it was done. Now it's more acceptable because the younger generations have said, you know what, I want to be me, and so I don't have to fit into this corporate box to be the corporate guy anymore or the corporate gal anymore. And so I realized later in life that being able to be your authentic self and be able to move within worlds is okay. Back then, I was keeping these worlds separate, and now they're just me. I'm proud of. I am who I am.
You sort of you were always multifaceted, but you were a little more compartmentalized about it.
Yeah,
And now you kind of say all the things that you do, right?
this is who I am.
This is who you are. So, you worked at Motorola. Then I
Hmm.
think you worked at Cox for a
Hmm.
while.
Yes,
Then,
AT&T.
yeah, Cricket. Then you were a
Crick.
professor, right?
Yes.
And like, tell me, like, I don't know, that's a lot of changing.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, you were in the telecom area. That makes sense. Then how did you make the switch into now I want to be a professor? And how can you just become a professor? Like, do you have to, how does that happen?
Yeah, it's so interesting because um, I was in a period of transition, wanting to do something more rewarding with my life. I felt like I was making money for people, but I wasn't changing the world, which has always been something that I wanted to do. And I know it sounds very Pollyanny. And I was like, you know what? I want to do something that's going to be meaningful. And so the university actually called. I'm a student leader, like I mentioned, and now an alumni leader. And so there happened to be an opening in the School of Communication in its journalism and media management program for someone to talk about and to teach undergraduates and graduate students about the business side of media. Well, to your point, I had been in communication for a very long time. And of course, I had the love for the alma mater. And so they were like, would you like to come and talk to us about being a full time lecturer at the school? And I paused and I said, well, how much does that make? Because I still need to make some money.
And you need to make some money. Yeah.
But ironically, I ended up with three different appointments, including the full time lecturer position. And so I went down without any teaching experience. I went down, and part of the final phase of the interview process was to actually do a guest lecture in a class and have the dean and associate dean sit there. And I tell you, by the end of that lecture, I said, are there any questions? And the whole room, hands went up. And the dean and the professors were like, hold on, you all don't even ask these kind of questions. What's going? And I was just looking at them like, hey, I'm just Winston. And so you fast forward, went to the U. Also consulted with our communications and marketing program on the Split U and how we can monetize it, and also led communications and marketing for the school of education. And so I had those three appointments at the same time. And the students said, "You're so different. You're so relatable. You're so dope. You're the dope professor."
I love that. That's how you got the dope professor. Yeah,
They gave it to me. Yes.
I love that. And then from that journey, you started a consultancy. Did you start that and you were teaching at the same time?
Yes, the consultancy started before I even went to the university.
Oh,
The
okay.
consultancy started when I was a full time artist. Reached number 27 on Billboard's R&B charts, um, and found out quickly that I don't want to be a starving artist. And so I started my consultancy to help other um, either aspiring musicians or influencers. I've worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign, just a different things, and started that then. Um, but I wanted to get back into marketing because Amazon came and said, "Hey, we're starting this new thing called Project Hyper. It's really under wraps, but it's going to be a global ISP based on satellite technology, and we need someone to create and build the marketing plan and team globally for this. Would you be interested?" And so I was like, "Hell yeah, I'll be interested."
Right.
And so that's how I got back into corporate America.
How did they find you?
I'm very well connected, as you know. And so, friend of a friend of a friend sent a link and said, "This job looks like it'll be amazing for you. You should, apply." And I was like, "Okay." And so I did. And then 2 weeks later, they emailed me and said, "Hey, the hiring manager wants to talk to you. Are you still available? Are you still in the market?" And I said, "Yes." And it's ironic that when you made your introduction, that's one of the things that they said that attracted them to me was because of the diverse and vast types of experiences that I've had. And they felt they needed someone creative outside of the Amazon world in order to help bring this thing to life. And so it was an offer I couldn't refuse.
And then how is that job? What's it like?
That's interesting because I did so well, then they've asked me to come and run marketing for what's called the Climate Pledge, which again is something that is very philanthropic but yet still corporate. And so I've been doing that for the past year and a half. Um, the Project Kuiper project is now called Amazon Leo. I don't know if you've seen advertising around it, but it's now launched. The satellites are up in the air, and all the things you see, my team, my old team that I built the whole team. They call me and say, "Hey, did you see this? Did you see this? We miss you here. You built this with us." And I'm like, I feel so proud. So anyway, now I'm doing the Climate Pledge, and you know, loving that because we are changing the trajectory of our environment, hopefully, with people committing to reaching net zero by 2040. So it's just been a whirlwind. It will be 5 years from me in May at Amazon, and so yeah, it's exciting. Um, yeah, who knows what's next after that?
Are you still doing singing? Are you still doing R&B?
I have a record now that I'm back in Atlanta. I'm actually working with one of my old producers on a new record that I hope to have produced this year.
Are you still doing that? Tell me about what's happening with the Dope Professor brand.
The Dope Professor brand is the foundation of who I am. I feel like online that I create life lessons for people and teach them about how to avoid the pitfalls of life. So I've turned the professorship from academics to life. Um, and it's what I do when I'm being an influencer. And so not only on my own, but with the fraternity and with the Civil Fox Squad, I am that guy who people come to and say, "Hey, Winston, can I talk to you about this? I need some advice. What do you think? How should I move? What would you do?" So that's the essence of who I am online.
Is there going to be a Dope Professor book coming out?
Yes.
There is. Not.
Yeah.
You're working on it.
I'm working on it.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. At this stage in your life, how do you know when it's time to make the next move? How do you know when it's time to evolve again? Because you're always constantly evolving, and you're multifaceted. What signals you now it's time to do yet another change?
I have a couple signals. One is, and I'm a very spiritual person. And so, you know, people say spirituality, religion, I'm just a person that's connected to spirit and connected to God, regardless of what denomination people choose to believe in. And so when I feel like my cup is running over, when I feel like the blessings are pouring out, when I feel like the harvest is really coming in, I know it's time for me to start planting somewhere else and start to plant and create those other opportunities for the harvest to continue. And so that's one signal I get. Another signal is I'm very intuitive and I listen. A lot of people don't listen to signs or look for the signs. I listen to them. And when I hear the voice telling me like, there's time to move, or you're complacent here, you're not getting the most out of it, whatever that is, I listen intently.
What happens if you don't get that signal?
Well, then you stay for 5 years
Then
or
you
you
stay.
stay before you.
Oh, okay. So do you get signals that it's time to stay, or
Oh, absolutely. Like at the university, I needed to be there at that time. I had several students come to me and say, "You're the first Black male professor I've ever had, and I'm a senior, and I needed you. And you have been the most impactful for me. Not maybe from an academic standpoint, but just from a life standpoint. I knew it was time." My dean, for instance, was the first Black female dean of a school of college at the University of Miami. And it was my time to be there with her when she began her tenure in order, I think, to help her navigate through a lot of other stuff that was going on. Now she's one of the oldest tenured deans there now because she is that woman. But my point is, that was me being there. I need to be there. God led me there for her and for a lot of other people and for myself. But when that job came and that link came and someone said, you should do this. And I felt like when I saw what it was doing and it had the opportunity to really change the world, I knew it was time. I knew it was time for me to go.
how do you constantly evolve but not feel like you're shedding or leaving or betraying earlier versions of yourself? Like you're
Mm-hmm.
still the dope professor in the school of life, but you're no longer the professor at the university.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel of like things that you move past or move beyond?
It's a great
Because
question.
you can't just add and add and add. You also gotta, shed some stuff, right?
Yeah, chapters have to close. It's really, you're good at this, and this is why you do what you do.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and not gaslighting you, I'm just being 100. I think you still do things. Say, for instance, the university. I'm a avid alumnus of the university, and I'm an alumnus leader on the president's council. And it gives me the opportunity to mentor young people at the school, even though I may not be a professor every day. So I still put that work in. I don't feel like I've abandoned that work. I feel like I've expanded it. And I also feel like I'm needed in the space I'm needed in here. And that's why I listen to spirit and I listen intently, because when you listen and you move, when you're aligned with the world, then you aren't abandoning, you are actually following the path you're supposed to be on. If
Right.
I
That makes
stayed
sense.
in that path, you know what I mean? If I
Yeah.
stayed there, then I could have become stagnant, or the blessings that I should be giving other people and be experiencing wouldn't have come to fruition. So you always have to evaluate to make sure, to your point, you're not running away from something or you're not shedding your skin too early, but you're matriculating just at the right time and in the right space.
I love that. Obviously, you're, an influencer, creator. Well, how do you think about authentic influence in a world that seems obsessed with metrics, with followers, with likes, with numbers? Maybe they mean something, maybe they don't. How do you
Yeah.
think about what matters in what you're putting out there, and how do you measure if you're successful with it or not?
It's such a relevant question because I consider you to be an influencer, many influencers out there. We all have that question sometimes, right? But then I say, okay, what's the difference between someone who has true influence and then someone who is buying that influence,
Right.
and how the algorithms of these different platforms treat someone? Because I literally was on a page for someone who has over 1 million followers, active engagement, and I saw a post that got 700 likes. Then I saw a post that got 500 likes. Then I saw a post that got 20,000 likes. So I'm like, are the likes that important? They are to a certain degree, but the feedback I get, the DMs I get that says, because of you or because of the squad, because of this, I am now looking at my life different, or the way I miss your Lifeology 101s. When's the next one coming? Because I really get the nuggets I need to move myself forward. Or I look forward to getting your post because I'm sick and you make me smile. And so therefore keep going. Like though, so it's all about what a person feels uh, is valuable or not. And for me, I have stopped looking at a lot of the likes anymore because a lot of these platforms just want you to pay for the likes. You know this, you know how they do.
I do, yeah.
They suppress. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to put the content out that I know is authentic to me, and hopefully folks will like it.
When you stepped into Amazon, you went from, obviously you had a corporate career, you took a little turn, you did a consulting, company that you started, and then you went to one of the biggest companies in the world. What had to change when you showed up there, if anything?
And that goes back to what we were talking about before, Jason. I felt like when I was younger, I did have to change some things. At Amazon, I told them, I'm an influencer. I'm a professor. This is who I am. And if you want me to come and to be this creative catalyst for this new business and this marketing plan and go to marketing plan, understand that Winston is all of these things. And they were like, okay. And many of them follow me. So, I haven't luckily been able to sacrifice any of the other things I'm doing because my brand is highbrow anyway. It's not like, I'm at the club popping bottles and doing all this crazy, I'm very highbrow kind of brand. And so luckily I haven't been able to sacrifice anything. And that's one of the things I will not do going forward.
They probably thought it was good for their brand too, right?
When I made my announcement on LinkedIn that I moved from the University of Miami and I was going to Amazon, it made such an impact on LinkedIn that the Amazon corporate web team reached out and said, do you mind if we repost this, or we just want to know who you were because you were trending for Amazon. So yes,
Man,
I think it was viewed as a benefit.
that's pretty amazing. Is there any thread from Motorola, Cox, Cricket, College Football Hall of Fame, U of Miami, Amazon? Is there any thread or characteristic that you took through all that journey in your career?
Yeah, it's interesting you use the word thread. I also use the word through line. And for me, the through line is always wanting to attack a big audacious goal that other people are afraid of. And that's the one I run to. Um, I've always been the person that would like, and this is old school, but a whiteboard with like dry erase markers, and I just need to fill it in with stuff and my ideas and my process. I love those kind of opportunities. And each of the opportunities I've had throughout my career are really like that. They are, they have been, we are launching something new, or we are doing something innovative and we need a leader to help with that. Or when I was younger in my earlier career, we need somebody to be part of that team that's going to revolutionize something or become self-reliant or launch a new brand or create a new company. It's always been part of my DNA. And I really am proud of that because not only can I operationalize something, but I can be visionary and take a vision, create a vision, and then take it down to the operation and make it be successful. And that's been the through line. Yeah. So
You really like kind of birthing new products and new projects, right? And so,
absolutely.
like, an example maybe is, big audacious hairy goal might be the work you did at satellite broadband. Sounds complicated, right? It
Yes.
sounds like, how the hell are we going to do that? Is that an example of like, oh yeah, put me in there, I'll figure it out?
It's cool. What's interesting is I'm not a scientist like these people that we hire from NASA and all of places. So I don't know how to do that. But what I do know how to do is to create a marketing plan and a go to market strategy globally to appeal to the people that we are targeting. I know how to do that. And so, how do you take a technology like satellite internet service and make it be relatable to the farmer in Montana or to the community in the Amazon rainforest or to communities in Africa or to neighborhoods and the rural part of Virginia. Like, how do you do that? And that's what me and my team did. That's how we created the plan and the strategy and even the brand that was just announced. So yeah, I would say that is an example of something that's big, audacious, that a whole company like Amazon took on to go up against Elon Musk and the other, players in that space.
You seem like such a, empathetic person, and you like to bring people together, and kind of you look at life through learning and lessons, and we're in this together. How do you keep that when you're working at a big corporate company that is all about creating shareholder value and quarterly profits? And how do you make sure that Winston voice doesn't get lost in the big, companies that are driving profit, because we're in a capitalistic, society?
Yeah, I think about it all the time. And I feel like I and the team that I create, we're like the oasis within those pockets, right? Within those environments. And so it's tough sometimes because uh, you know, some companies want you to be a little less empathetic and a little more robotic. Uh, and I refuse to do so. And so what I have to do is be really freaking good at my job so that I can be like, oh well, that's just Winston. Oh, that's just the marketing team. Oh yeah, yeah. And so I get away with it because I put points on the board. And when you put points on the board, it's hard to say I need you to change because you're too empathetic. But aren't we supposed to be focused on people? Help me understand that. And so I've learned over the years to put points on the board and also turn conversations in a way that people can't defend certain things, and so I get away with things that others might not get away with.
You're writing music, you're telling stories. How is that related to marketing?
Oh, you got to market yourself. So it's what is interesting about music nowadays is that it's not controlled, as you know, by these big companies and listen to my demo and I need to get signed. It's a whole different ball game. And so the fact that I can market myself and understand how to market my music has been very beneficial for me. Um, it is the creative part of me that is the through line for all of that. So what the way I look at marketing, I look at it as, a science and an art. And same thing with music, same thing with teaching, same thing with being an influencer. It's all about tapping into that creative strength that I have and being able to produce something that people are going to love and like. And so, yeah, they listen to the lyrics and go, man, you can tell a story. Man, I think that's why the song went to 27 on Billboard without any major, um, publicity and dollars behind it, because people are like, I can relate to what he's singing about. Like, I can relate to that, and it comes through in your music. The vibe comes through. The vibe comes through in your videos. So I think it's all interrelated. At least I try to make it that way.
What do you think corporate leaders can learn from artists about vulnerability and confidence and putting yourself out there?
They can learn those lessons that you just said. They can learn those things.
Oh yeah, all
I
right.
think what happens nowadays is people forget, and this is a new thing that I started at the end of last year. It's what I call executive intelligence plus culture is kind of the way things should be in terms of how marketing leaders should look at themselves and how leaders should look at themselves. And what's happening is that they're depending so much on AI and so much on these tools to automate things and to operationalize things, that they're forgetting the culture piece and the people piece. In my opinion, is what's going to make are the things that are going to make people win and companies win. And it's the combination of the two. And I think if they listen to or tap back into their creative selves and their artists and their childlike states and their whimsical desires, if they tap back into it, then I think could form really strong relationships with their consumers, if their end users are people, or if it's a B2B enterprise, to those companies and those decision makers. But at the end of the day, profit is one thing, but how do you bring in the culture pieces and the humanity back into decisions? And I think that's something that leaders can learn.
Do you think we're losing the idea and the power brand, and we're moving too far into clicks and numbers and results and performance, and we've lost the idea of the power of brand, which is longer term and maybe not month to month, quarter to quarter, but over time is valuable. Do you think we're losing that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is why I developed this concept of, executive intelligence plus culture, because it's all about how do we bring that to bear with the brand. Because a lot of people are trying to your point, use AI to optimize and to make their marketing spend and their dollars go further more efficiently, which is great. But Pepsi just did it. Not Pepsi, I'm sorry. Dr. Pepper just did it with their new campaign that was born from TikTok from an influencer who's just singing a little simple jingle. And now they said, you know what, this is great. Let's use this. And if you aren't familiar with it, just Google it after we
Oh,
have
I've
our
seen it.
conversation.
I've
There
seen
you
it.
go.
It's
There you
amazing.
go. Like they
Amazing.
get it. They get it. Like they
Yeah.
get it. There are brands that you see that get it. They are looking at the bottom line. They're looking at the black. Of course, they're supposed to look at, how to keep this thing solvent and profitable. But they understand that the key to doing that is through these great products, great relationship with their customers, and the longevity of that. And the executives that combine both are winning. Those who are going after clicks are not going to win, in my opinion.
Yeah, we had the CMO of Dr. Pepper on a while ago, and he has that cultural pulse plus the intelligence piece that you're mentioning, and
There you go.
that's a think of how much goodwill that campaign created for Dr. Pepper, and you
Genius.
genius, and just how quickly they did it, and it's such a good move. And we're talking about it, right?
I mean, it's the crispy chicken sandwich with Popeyes.
Yeah,
It's
for sure.
the way Chick-fil-A does with the cows and the eat chicken thing. I'm like, it works. And I think it's because they're tapped in. And just I'll plug my team, my old team, and the work we've done. But that was the first thing I told Amazon when they asked me to do the role that I was in. I said, I need to understand who our market is. I need to understand the people and the businesses within our TAM, our target market. I need to understand all these things. We need to do research. And they were like, well, what's the ROI in that? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I think we want to be unique in this space. And so if we want to be unique, I think we need to go and talk to people and not just, ask all our AI tools what they think or buy these reports. We need to really go and talk to people. And if you talk to people, you will get such great insights. And I think that's what Dr. Pepper has done. I think that's what other people do that are strong brands. And that is part of my playbook. I will forever advocate that we hear from real humans and let them tell us how they want things and what they want and how they want things. And we'll be able to tap into our understanding as a company to, meet those pain points.
I love that you're people first in transmitting your lessons right out there,
Yes.
and then you're people first in how you're attacking marketing problems, and that's sort of like, I think, an interesting link there of your worldview.
Thank you.
What is your most challenging thing about your career? What's the hardest thing for you about your career?
I would say the hardest thing would be just when you're faced with or where you're talking to or in a situation where colleagues and other people don't feel that way. And making sure that I can speak their language so that they understand where I'm coming from and that I don't have to sacrifice my belief in people and my other values while succeeding and while partnering with them. That is probably the hardest thing I have to do because people see it all the time. They see me coming. They see the light, the energy coming, and some people don't understand it. And if you're not talking ones and zeros, then they don't get it. And so the hardest thing for me is and I've learned this lesson, is to translate my fervor for people and culture and creativity into a language that they understand, that they can respect so that we can move forward. And that mental gymnastics, Jason, is interesting.
Does it piss you off that you have to spend the energy doing that?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Good. All right. We got one pissed off from something there.
No, but it does. I mean, it's so frustrating. Like,
Yeah.
these are people.
What's your favorite thing about your career?
Oh, that I get to do such wonderful things and travel and, be in spaces that are spaces I didn't think I would be in, you know, when I was younger. Um, and the ability to be myself and have no more F's to give,
I love it.
you know.
Yeah.
Some people are still, even at, I'll be 55 in 2 weeks. And you'll be surprised how many people are still like shackled by what other people think. And they're shackled by like, I gotta, blah, blah. No, I'm going to show up as myself. And if I'm a reflection, which I think human beings are, we're a reflection of each other. Some people look at me and it shows the stuff that they don't want to see. Well, I'm not going to dim my light for you. I'm just going to give you some sunglasses. I'm going to give you a little bit of sunscreen and we're going to be all right. And that's the most beautiful thing.
I love that. Final question. Do you have a Winston Warrior mantra or quote that guides you through life that you always think about?
Yes. I close it out with all of my social posts when I'm doing my Lifeology 101 lessons. And it goes something like this. I want you to think differently. I want you to believe differently. Then I want you to live differently, because when you change your mind, you can change your world. And that is my mantra.
Hand claps.
Thank
I love
you.
it.
And snaps.
Yeah, and snaps and claps. I love it. All right. Well, thanks for being on the Soul and Science podcast and sharing your really multifaceted career and all of your expertise with us and all your knowledge. Our audience really appreciates it.
Thank you for having me humbly. Thank you.
Soul and Science is a Mekanism podcast produced by Maggie Bowles, Ryan Tillotson, and Lily Jablonski. The show is edited by Daniel Ferreira with theme music by Kyle Merritt. And I'm your host, Jason Harris.